What are exactly dreams? How would you define them? Are they aspirations that people live and strive for to complete objectives that they've set out to accomplish? Are they visions or memories that we see when we're sleeping? Is it our minds recycling all the information we don't need? Or is it giant fuck off monsters that can be summoned into reality to destroy countries? I don't know. I'm having an existential crisis with it all. Just butchered that word, but we're going on with it. We're not cutting. We're going. We're going to get this all in one take. But as you've probably seen, not from my lovely, elegant intro, my very sick intro. I'm sorry about that. It's getting worse than I was yesterday. But probably from the thumbnail that I've chucked in it. Today we're talking about Rimoshifu Killingham. Now, I'm going with the pronunciation of Killingham. You can also call him Kirinham. Kiringham, I should say. I don't like that. I shouldn't say I don't like. I'm not super fond of characters that have their power in their name somehow. Unless, of course, it's an epithet or nickname. But the fact that he has eaten the Kirin fruit and has the name of Killingham just doesn't work for me, doesn't gel with me. I like Killingham for it, and I think it suits him pretty well. But once again, guys, I am really sorry for how nasally I'm sounding. Dropped a video yesterday going over Loki's past. Chuck it up, cheap plug, go and watch it. It was a good video. Explored a lot about the gods of Greek gods, Norse gods as well. It actually kind of ties back with this video because we're going to be going into the supernatural creatures of Kirin's as well to find out what exactly is happening with Killingham's power. Because I don't reckon it's too hyperbolic to say that this fruit, the Rio no Mi model Kirin, is quite possibly the most confusing devil fruit we've seen in One Piece. Not confusing in its abilities and nebulous or anything like that, but confusing in how the main power set that he has correlates to the mythical creature that he has. And yes, he's a mythical devil fruit user. We are getting a lot of them. I think it is surpassed Logia's now and is getting into astronomical numbers for a devil fruit that is supposed to be so incredibly rare. Do you remember at Marineford where we just had Marco and Sengoku and we were blown? We blew our minds with it all. Like mythical devil fruits, a phoenix, a Buddha, like Jesus Christ. All this stuff is so cool, and these are going to be so rare. We might only see one or two more in the rest of the series. Nah, I was like, hold my beer. Let me show you everything that I have. I kind of love it because I dig mythology and supernatural creatures and everything. So I'm really liking the introduction of them all. But maybe we should have toned down on just how rare they are. But Killingham, what do we know about him? Well, we get introduced to a new celestial dragon family. I completely have blanked on it. I'm blaming it to my sickness. I've got it written down. The Rimoshifu family. It's one of the noble families we haven't heard of before, so that's always great. I would love to get all 19 of them. Of course, we have the Nefertaris down in Elbaph. Just to know who all 20 of them are, I think would be really cool and how they correlate with each other. We just did a video a couple days ago on Summers, one of his compatriots in the Gods Knights. Go check that out. That was a good video as well. 5 minutes in and already 2 plugs. That's the way we do it here. But Summers was a member of the Shepherd family. So I just think it's really cool seeing some of these Gods Knights and who they're actually related to. I'm waiting to see a really powerful person from Charlos's family and Roswald's family and stuff like that. Surely there's got to be one person in there who isn't an incompetent idiot. But anyway, I regress. We get introduced to him when Shamrock summoned. Well, no, it wasn't Shamrock. I apologize. It was Gunko who summoned Killingham and Summers to Elbaph to help them in the acquisition of bringing Elbaph into the fold and making them allies. They're not necessarily allies, making them into servants, essentially, is what their goal is. And Killingham and Summers brought a lot of well, not a lot of, but they brought some light and comic relief to this really ultra serious organization. Like Shamrock and Gunko, you can imagine, have absolutely no sense of humor whatsoever. The two of them, when they go on missions, it must be the most boring duo imaginable in terms of what's going on. I can't imagine any banter whatsoever. Gunko can be a little bit sarcastic, so who knows? Maybe her dry wit could be humorous, but they're very, very ultra serious. And we get Summers, who gets summoned in his boxer shorts and a singlet, and we get Killingham, who's summoned in while still on the while getting what's the word? Still getting ready for the mission that he's going on. He gets summoned in his hybrid form, half Kirin, half man. In this, well, we're going to go over the Kirins in mythology soon, but in this form, they take the more Chinese route of it all. China was where the Kirins were first mentioned in mythology, and from then, a lot of other Eastern Asian countries have incorporated that legend into their own. Japanese and South Korea and stuff like that. Japan, Jack, Jesus. The sickness is really, really messing with my brain here. And the more I'm talking, the more my voice is getting worse. I wanted to get 2 videos filmed tonight. We might have to stick with one. We'll see how we go. But as it's more depicted in the Chinese mythology, this Kirin form has more of a giraffe's neck. He kind of looks like a cooler version of Kaku in a way. So he's got like the giraffe's neck with kind of like a dragon's face, and he's wearing a gas mask. He also has one of the fish bowls over his head like the other celestial dragons, which is an interesting concept considering that we haven't seen any of the other gods knight wear them, or the Gorosei. So, I apologize for the sniffing. So that's interesting. He could have thought he was going on a mission somewhere else in the lower realm and needed to wear them to keep up appearances, but he also hasn't taken it off, so he might just feel more comfortable with it. I could see him having some sort of, gimmick about really hating the air, like more so than the other gods' knights, or having a really strong sense of smell, etc. And this like calms it down for him. But he gets introduced obviously more on the comedic side because he's all over the place. He doesn't know where he is and stuff like that. And we later find out he has the same issue that Ace does in terms of falling asleep in random locations and in the middle of a conversation. So he has that going for him. So him and Summers definitely are the pranksters and the jokesters of the Gods Knights. Now, it's also important to note that him falling asleep could have something to correlate to his power, which we'll get into in a second. The meat and potatoes of this video will be his power, but I thought we'll touch on what we know of him personality-wise. He's the most level-headed member of the Gods Knights that I think we've seen. And we see this because he's, of course, a monster. There's no getting around that. He's endorsing the murder of children, kidnapping children, having children burned. He is an utter monster. There's no getting around that. But he also seems to have more respect than, say, someone like Summers does. When Summers, Gunko, and Killingham are sitting down, having some high tea while they watch children suffer, Summers is, poking fun at Gunko about the music that she listens to, the way she eats, about not being used to this level of gourmet feasting, and Killingham kind of steps up for her. He's like, knock it off, Summers. Don't patronize her. Let her do what she wants to do. So he seems to have a lot of respect for his fellow Gods Knights. And you could see that he views them more as friends than as like colleagues type of thing. Like he certainly doesn't view them the way that he might view lower celestial dragons, or the way he views obviously the people in the lower realm. Which I really like, that we're seeing some camaraderie between them all. And I said this in the Summers video, but these three Gods Knights specifically really, really complement each other in each other's power sets. But we see Killingham take lead in terms of the assault on Elbaph. We'll get into that in a second. And we see that he is the one setting up the hostage negotiations for the children about demanding Elbaph's surrender. Now, it's important to note that he lets Summers do the actual negotiating while he is like at the epicenter setting it up, which I found interesting because like why go to the trouble of that? So Killingham might be more on the shy side or more on the clumsy side. We see that also like to support that argument. Obviously, when he gets introduced about him being lost and late, etc., etc., would imply that he's a little bit airheaded. He's very aloof that we see, and that probably has something to do with his power. So he was very fine just letting Summers take lead and handle those negotiations. Uh, but it's interesting that he is doing that because I reckon he's probably the most powerful out of the three. I want to note though that I can change my opinion on that from what we see later on in the upcoming chapters. But he is monstrously powerful. But is he? He's a very interesting. His power set is very very interesting. On the surface, it's like, oh my god, is this the most powerful Zoan mythical fruit ever that we've seen? But then when you look into it more closely, it's like, is it or not? And if you want my opinions on that, you're gonna have to stay tuned. You're gonna have to bear with the nasally speech to find out why I think it might be not overrated, but might have some serious weaknesses and drawbacks that really limit its capabilities. But let's go over what it can do. So obviously, it transforms the user into a Kirin. And once again, in this one, let's just say it's a dragon crossed with a giraffe type of form. So you can fly in this form. You have a flame clouds like Kaido does, because I think I misspoke before. When he gets summoned, I think he's in his full beast form. Sorry, when he gets summoned, and then he has his hybrid form when he becomes like a centaur Kirin, essentially. Lower body of like the giraffe creature, giraffe chimera creature, while his human form is on the upper body. And we see he can fly by creating flame clouds, which I found that really, really interesting. I thought that was going to be a power limited to just Kaido, but it seems like other mythical creatures might have a similar form. Though maybe just because Kirin is also part dragon, he could do it, and you have to be at least part dragon to create the clouds. It's food for thought when we see other mythological devil fruits appearing in the series. But he can do that. He has proficiency in archery, where he can create flaming arrows. Whether or not that's part of his devil fruit, though, is up in the air. It could just be, an item that he possesses. He also came in with a three-pronged trident spear. One of the prongs, though, is kind of lowered down, so they're not, like, symmetrical. It actually looks like quite a cool weapon. But, I've danced around it enough. The main form of this ability is it's twofold. One is to put people to sleep, which that in itself is devastating. And as I'm going to go into a little bit later, that might actually be the strongest part of his devil fruit, which I think is getting overlooked a little bit. And the second part is I shouldn't just say creating monsters, summoning creations from people's dreams. Now, let me explain. We have a scene where he's having lunch with Summers, and he says to Summers, "Hey, Summers, salt." And Summers, he hears the word salt, so he immediately thinks about it, as you would. I bet you guys just thought of salt when I said it. See that? I'm controlling your minds, the Jedi mind tricks. But Summers thinks of it. A thought bubble appears over him, and then Killingham puts him to sleep with kind of hypnosis beams from Pokemon, if you've ever played it. And at least from the older generations. And it puts Summers to sleep, and then Killingham brings forth what he was thinking of, therefore, because he's just sleeping, he's kind of then for dreaming about it, and he brings forth the salt into existence. So he's creating matter from nothing, which is crazy. Um, it's said that this food that he creates is calorie free because it's dream food, which is really, really good for people like me that just love to snack, as you can probably tell. If I could create chocolate, etc., that I wouldn't gain weight from, that didn't have calories, sign me up. That's all I would use the devil fruit for. Uh, but he can bring objects from existence, Jesus. He can bring objects from people's dreams into existence. And the main aspect of this power that we see is that he uses this on the children of the Walrus School. He puts them all to sleep and then he brings forth their dreams. And in this case, they were all having nightmares because in class beforehand, they were writing down what they fear the most and discussing it. So they're all, petrified. They're having all these nightmares and stuff. And Killingham brings all of those creatures into existence. They're monstrously tall, like they're taller than the giants by quite a bit. Um, so that's not like, I feel like regardless of what you were thinking about, he can make it that big. But he summons these monsters, and he creates an army through the flick of his fingers, essentially. The snap of his fingers, I should say. These creatures that he summons ranges from the Jormungandr to Fenrir to like a thundercloud that looked like Zeus to a sun god Nika to the accursed prince Loki. One of them even summoned their mum, which I thought was really funny. We see a Draugr, like a walking reanimated skeleton, and a lot more that will. I might show pictures and stuff that you can have a look at, but we'll be here all day if we go over them all. But it is important to know that these creations are only to the specifications of how the kids think of them. So if the kid has a more in-depth relation to what they're afraid of and can vision it better and more clearer, the creation is going to be stronger than if they can't. So when they summon Loki, for instance, he doesn't have the strength of the real Loki because they've never experienced that strength, so they don't know for certain, or they can't possibly comprehend how strong he is, so the creation therefore isn't as strong. Now keep in mind, these creations are strong enough to overwhelm the giant warriors of Elbaph, which is something to take credit on. Well, Elbaph is kind of chalked up to be the strongest kingdom there is. Oh, excuse me. And Killingham, literally from the snap of his fingers, is created a force that is like taking them all down type of thing. Now, do I think if the battle was drawn out, do I think that the Giants would be able to overthrow these dream creatures are called MMAs because of the whole fighting wrestling concept of Elbaph. Do I think that the Giants would be able to take out these MMAs? Yes, I do, eventually. But it would have been a struggle and they would have a lot of casualties on their side. A very useful ability for this as well is that they're not just spawned from where the kids are. It's like portals are spawned all over Elbaph, and that's when they come out, which is good. It gives the power a lot more versatility. They also can just be revived, so you can't just kill them. That's done. Let's move on. Because they're dream creatures, Killingham can just bring them up, so he has an infinite army. I know, overpowered, right? He is, I will come out and say it, he is a country, he's an anti-country level threat. If he used this power on other people, even though their dreams might not be as barbaric as the children of Elbaph, even if he can just create these immortal creatures that respawn that are giant-sized, he can take out a country with this easily. There's not really continents in One Piece. But if you took this power to another anime world, this could be a continent level ability as well, depending on the scope of it. Because we see that Killingham can there doesn't seem to be a limit to the amount that he can create. Like when he creates them, he doesn't show any strain controlling this many creatures. The only limit to his ability that we see is that there's a time limit on how long the children will stay asleep. But to me, that's not really a weakness in the creation of the MMAs, because we know if the children just wake up, the MMAs are still here. They still exist. They don't just disappear from them waking up. And we know this because, one, obviously the children do wake up, and we see it with Summers. That's the whole reason that Killingham gets him to imagine the salt so they can all eat together. So the creations that he makes stays there, which is really powerful. It would have been very easy for Oda to be like, "Oh no, the people are awake, creatures are gone," it would still be a very powerful ability, but it would limit the scope of it. If he can create these endlessly in the right circumstances, I could definitely see him being a continent level threat, at least to the civilization that are on the continents and countries. Whether or not they could destroy the landmass and everything is debatable. It all depends on how strong these creatures are. But for normal people and stuff like that to stop them, I don't see it happening. We see the giants themselves struggling with it. Now, the sleep power, being able to put people to sleep. He can do this close range or long range. We, of course, see it against Summers, where the hypnosis beams go and hit him and he falls asleep. He also was able to do it to the children of the Walrus School while he wasn't in the vicinity. Now, none of the teachers got affected by this power. Whether or not that was Killingham just aiming for the kids, or whether or not he was able to work the power around where it only affected the children. Because we don't know if he has to shoot out these hypnosis beams to put these kids to sleep. From memory, when I first saw it in the school, it seemed like a smoke, vapor, miasma kind of was what got in and affected the kids. So it's he could have different ways to execute this power of his. We don't know yet. Not only can he put people to sleep though, but he can cause people to have sleep paralysis. Um, to be fair, this is probably just it's not an ability that's more powerful than just putting someone straight to sleep. It's actually just more of a sadistic version of it, because this way the person is conscious for what you're about to do to them. I realized how that just sounded. Get your heads out of the gutter. I was thinking more of it along the lines of who's a I can't think of a massive torturer of anime in the top of my head, but I was thinking about it more of the torture side of it, about, showing people true despair and letting them, be inflicted by pain, letting them see their comrades die and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of tormented shit that you could do to someone who is paralyzed like that. Otherwise, it has no other purpose. Like, it's no different than just putting them to sleep. Like, it does the same thing. We don't find out that one is stronger than the other. Oh, sorry. We're getting through it. In the closing stretch, I reckon. Having said that, it is me. It could go on for another 15 minutes. Who knows? Uh, but those are the main abilities. I'm just checking to make sure I haven't forgotten any of the powers that he has. No. I should say he's an awakened Devil Fruit user. So obviously, as if it wasn't already telling, he has an incredible control over his Devil Fruit because he's a Zoan Fruit user. He doesn't get overtaken from the beast within. So he has an incredibly strong spirit and an incredibly high level of control over his power. His awakened ribbon is also white, which I think is the one of the first times we really see that, other than with Luffy, I think, for the awakened Devil Fruit ribbon to be white. Let me know down in the comments, sorry if I'm forgetting someone. It's just, I don't know why Oda's gone for that, maybe just a contrasting choice in the color scheme. But let's get into why this power might not be as strong as everyone's thinking. Because from everything I've said, Jack, he's a country level threat, he's a continent level threat. My God, this does sound incredibly powerful. Well, I have some gripes, let's say, with this power. Because we know that the children were thinking about their nightmares because in class, just like an hour earlier, even less maybe, that's what they were going over. They were exploring their fears. So Killingham's been able to come around and take those fears and create these monsters. My question though is, what happens if they weren't, if you put them to sleep and he wasn't, and they weren't having these dreams? If you summoned sunshine and rainbows and flowers and bunny rabbits, maybe not bunny rabbits. We've seen bunny rabbits in this arc. They're monstrous creatures as well. Scratch the bunny rabbits. But if they're thinking of non-threatening things, I feel like this power then gets severely limited in the scope of what it can do. Now, to be fair, maybe he can control the type of sleep that someone is having. If he can put someone in sleep paralysis, maybe he can cause someone who's fallen victim to his power to experience nightmares and then use his power from that. Because if you couldn't do that, then this is a very, very severely limited fruit. And that whole second aspect of the devil fruit to bring things into existence is completely redundant in a combat sense, in a situational means if people aren't experiencing things like nightmares, where the fruit's main power then just becomes around putting people to sleep. Which, don't get me wrong, is a very powerful ability. It's essentially a one-hit KO move. I will say, we saw it work on Summers, but Summers wasn't expecting it. I don't think this ability would work on someone like Luffy or Loki or Zoro or Scopogaban or any of these people that have incredibly strong amounts of haki where they could probably nullify their technique. Otherwise, it's a one-hit KO move, and it's like Sugar's Toy Fruit, the Hobby Hobby no Mi. We know that she couldn't use that on someone like Kaido because Kaido would just break out of it with his haki. So I don't think you'd be able to put someone like Luffy to sleep. And let's play this out. Say it was a 1v1 fight against Luffy, Killingham versus Luffy, and say Killingham doesn't have a bunch of extra people around that he could summon his MMAs because they're not having nightmares. That limits him to the sleep ability, which, assumedly, I could be wrong, but which would rationally think wouldn't work on Luffy because of his drastic amounts of haki, meaning Killingham would be forced to confront him head on. He could, of course, get some distance with the fire arrows, but I don't think that would work on someone like Luffy. We've seen Killingham like judo throw giants and stuff like that, so he's very capable physically. Oh, sorry, but he's not anywhere close to Luffy's level of physical strength. He wouldn't last really any time at all against someone like Luffy if we're going off the thought process of not being able to summon the MMAs depending on the circumstance. Luffy would just take that easily, that win. So he's kind of like a little bit of not a glass cannon or a double-edged sword, but his power seems to have severe requirements. Now, as we were saying, he might be able to get through those requirements quick smart by affecting their dreams. I don't remember seeing anything that states that he can do something like that. So for now, I'm going to say that he can't. His ability, the fact that there's a time limit on them being asleep doesn't matter in a combat sense, because if he was in a fight with someone, he'd just put them to sleep and off them. His power isn't as versatile as it's being shown with the kids, because that's a mixture of help from Gunko and Summers. He can't make the kids sleepwalk. Because he can't make them sleepwalk, that makes me think as well that he can't maybe make them have nightmares. We know that he can't make them sleepwalk because he has Gunko use her arrow fruit to make them walk and move. Now, once again, that's not a weakness in a combat sense. It's more of just a weakness to the versatility that's been demonstrated so far of the ability. But that's pretty much everything in terms of a power sense of what Killingham can do. Once again, he's very, very powerful in terms of an artillery set or being able to create armies type of thing, like a general sitting back and controlling everything. And he's very, very powerful for everyone in the series that isn't a top tier threat. So all of the Straw Hats, other than Luffy, Zoro, probably Sanji and Jinbei as well, he would probably be able to put Robin to sleep. All of the Straw Hats would be utterly useless because he's just putting them to sleep instantly and then just taking them out. That is, of course, if we're doing this with like our controller up his ass controlling what he does. Who knows? He could have a bunch of personality flaws that limit what he does on a battlefield in a 1v1 situation. I don't think so because he seems so aloof. But there is something to explore with maybe summoning his own dreams because he goes to sleep so often. He could summon things that are more powerful than the people around him. I could definitely see that being the case, especially because he's totally cognizant of what his powers is. So if he observes someone and truly knows what they are, bringing that thing to life when he's dreaming might be stronger than little kids that don't really know what they're imagining, the true scope of what they're imagining. So that's his power. It's a very, very strong, strong Devil Fruit, regardless of how you spin it. And I love that Oda's introduced it. But what I got into in the beginning of the video about staying tuned about, how does this all make sense type of thing? Because it's very, very odd that he can do any of this. If you've looked into Kirins in mythology, they're quite docile creatures, I would say. They're very non-threatening. They essentially bring good fortune. They don't have, from everything that I've seen, and please let me know down in the comments if you've seen from different sources and stuff that Kirins can do stuff like this. From everything I've seen, the most that they can do offensively is do things like summon fire and lightning in some accounts. Now we have Killingham with the fire arrow and stuff, so he's kind of living up to that motif a little bit. But there's no mention of them controlling dreams. There's also real no mention, if you want to take it a little bit ambiguous, of like, they see through people's journeys and make their dreams come true type of thing. In like a nebulous way like that either. I don't see any mention of that. The only symbolism that I've seen, I've been able to research about Kirins, is that they often appear when a great sage or a great leader is either born or dies, which could be a lot of great foreshadowing from Oda in the sense of, is this referring to someone like Eam either appearing or dying? Because technically Eam has just appeared for all of the Straw Hats type of thing and the people on Elbaph. I imagine it's not very often that people get to see the great almighty Mu. So a little bit of play on words there with him. Or could it be a symbolism that, hey, Mu's actually going to die at the end of this series? Or could it be something like a great sage being Luffy being born into the world and ascending to his power and his station in life? I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think Oda really sees Luffy as a sage figure. Knowing Oda, it would be more likely to be someone like Loki or another figure that is quite wise and stuff like that. He's very carefree with Luffy and doesn't like to give him, Luffy would never be holding a position of authority type of thing. He's never someone that kind of he does influence people, but he's never someone who you would describe as, patient and wise and strategic and caring. Like, even though Luffy is caring, he's also not caring in some ways. He's very selfish for what he likes, and thankfully a lot of his selfish desires are things that benefit not just his nakama, but the people around him. Because at the end of the day, despite him being selfish, he is a good person at heart. It's not really like a Gon situation from Hunter x Hunter where, yes, you could argue he's more good than he is bad. But Gon is in a lot of ways is a bit of a psychopath if you really get into the analysis of his personality. Luffy's not like that. He does generally seem to want to help people, even though he might say otherwise, because we know that in Luffy's mind, he wants to keep all of the meat all to himself. But that's it for tonight's video. What are we, 35 minutes? God, I think we're even longer than the Summers video. But there was a lot to talk about with Killingham's power. It's a major talking point right now in the series with like the arc is literally being moved by Killingham's power. So he's definitely a major figure that we really needed to sit down and have a more in-depth discussion with. I did think that it was going to be shorter than this, and I bet you my throat was wanting it to be shorter. But once again, guys, I'm really sorry that you've had to sit through my nasally speech right now. I'm hoping to get better soon. I might try to get one more video. I'll record one more video tonight, just in case I get really worse tomorrow and can't do another. Can't really worse in the next couple of days in case I can't do videos. We'll see how we go. I think I might do a video on Harold. But guys, I've been Jack Cypher. I hope you all have a lovely night. Cypher out.